Thank you so much for checking out this video, We All Count, Understanding the 2020 Census, brought to you by the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition in partnership with the United States Census Bureau. My name is Lacey Stein, and I am your speaker today. Please feel free to reach out to me at lstein@ccdconline.org. That's Stein, L-S-T-E-I-N, at ccdconline.org for any questions that you might have. I am the Census Outreach Coordinator for the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition. And today I would like to explain to you 3 different reasons why the census is significant to all of our lives. So today my goal is to explain how the census is 1, important for all communities, 2, easy for individuals to complete, and 3, it is safe and secure for your peace of mind. In that I am working with a nonprofit that seeks to serve people with various kinds of disabilities, I will be doing my best to make this information accessible to you, particularly if you might have visual impairments. As such, I will be reading some of the slides, and please know that there are very few graphics and no pictures in this presentation. Let's start with our first point. I hope that you will remember that the census is important. The heading of this slide is the census. What is it and who should complete it? Simply put, the census is a survey conducted every 10 years by the United States Census Bureau. The goal of the census is to gather an accurate count of all people residing in the United States by counting every person once, only once, and in the right place. The census is mandated by the Constitution. It is not a political move, nor is it politically motivated. It is simply a survey to get an accurate count of all people residing in the U.S. And who should complete the census? Everyone. Everyone should take the census, no matter a person's age, gender, race, ethnicity, citizenship status, or so on. Everyone counts and everyone should be counted. That means children, seniors, everyone. Our next slide. The census is important. The census provides a population baseline for the country with a general understanding of our demographic breakdown according to age, race, ethnicity, income level, etc. It influences where businesses will be located. If a new grocery store is thinking of coming to your neighborhood, they are highly likely to use census data to understand whether or not their business would be successful in your community. The census data also informs how many representatives our state gets in Congress. It also informs representation at the city and local levels through redistricting. And this is an especially important point for folks with disabilities. Census data determines how federal funding is allocated for 55 essential public services. This next slide is a little more complicated. If you'd like to look at the full report that this slide comes from, please feel free to Google "Counting for Dollars Colorado," and this will pop right up for you. So what we have here is a list of all of the 55 different federal programs that are funded according to state based on census data. So what we have here is kind of an overwhelming slide, but it serves a purpose. You can see here that millions, billions of dollars are allocated to Colorado's public services via the census data. So this chart shows the fiscal year of 2016 and the funding that Colorado as a state received for 55 different public services. And all of this information and all of these dollars were allocated based on data taken from the 2010 census. Particularly important for people with disabilities, we can see right here, is Medicaid. Medicaid had $5 billion dedicated to Coloradans, from the 2010 census data. And that was just for fiscal year 2016. Moving on, we also have some of the other top programs that are funded based on census data. We have federal direct student loans, we have SNAP, we have Medicaid, highway planning and construction, Pell Grants, Section 8, TANF, and the list goes on and on. In addition, a very important note here on the side, we've got a little sidebar that reads, every person counted in the census earns about $2,300 for Colorado Public Services every year for the next decade. That's $23,000 per person between now and 2030. So, how does this big money move into your community? This slide explains that the Census Bureau collects information according to residences, not individuals' names or other identifying information. In other words, the Census Bureau invites people and sends people information about the census and the census form itself according to residential addresses. The Census Bureau has created several options to ensure that it is easy for everyone to be counted, no matter where you live. Not only is the census incredibly important, the census is also easy. This slide explains that there are 4 ways that we can respond to the census. The first way is online at www.2020census.gov. That's www.2020census.gov. The second way is by calling 844-330-2020 using your cell phone or a landline. That's 844-330-2020, and you can call that using your cell phone or a landline. And be assured that an actual live human will answer your call. The Census Bureau hotline is operated by official census takers that are held to the same standards of recording your information accurately and securely, just like any other census taker. The third method to respond is by a paper form that you will or have already received at your residence. And the fourth and final way to take the census is to speak with an official census taker who will come to your door and ask you the census questions later on in the year 2020 if you do not respond by answering the census online, over the phone, or via a paper form. Moving on to this next slide, entitled How to Respond Based on Your Living Situation, the census has truly tried to make it easy for everyone to respond no matter their living situation. Again, the Census Bureau contacts people and invites them to respond and participate in the survey based on residential addresses rather than individual names or other identifying information. So based on your living situation, it's important to know how you can best respond and the easiest way to respond based on your living situation. So what we have here on this slide is a table with 4 columns across and 4 rows down that shows, based on your living situation, how to best and most easily respond to the census. So out of the different sorts of living situations that are offered on this table, we have a traditional street address, a rural/residence without regular postal service, and then the third would be unhoused individuals, and the fourth and final column here refers to group quarters, which include assisted living facilities, correctional facilities, and so on. And with regard for the options for participating in the census, we have online, by phone, by paper form, and via an official census taker during the non-response follow-up phase that I referenced a few moments ago. So let's take a look at the traditional street address column. The best way, if you have a traditional street address living in an urban or suburban area, the best way you can do it, the easiest way that you can participate and make a huge difference in your community is to go online right now and take the 2020 census by going to www.2020census.gov. Similarly, if you have internet access and you live in a rural area or a residence without regular postal service, then going online would be the best, easiest, fastest way for you to respond and to be counted. However, the Census Bureau understands that in many rural areas, remote areas, internet access is not always possible. And so another great option for you would be to take the census by phone by calling 844-330-2020. If you are unhoused, you also have a great way to respond by being able to go online. Clearly, if you are unhoused, internet access might not be the easiest way for you to do this. However, some unhoused people do have smartphones or might have access to internet via a shelter or possibly under various circumstances, the library. However, if you cannot take the census online and you do have access to a telephone, please call 844-330-2020 to speak to a live operator who will help you. There are also several options, particularly online and over the phone, that will make it easy for you to describe where you were living on April 1st, which is Census Day, and we'll talk about momentarily. But if you are unhoused, you can discuss where you were living on April 1, 2020 to respond accurately to the census. Finally, if you're an unhoused person, later on in the year, depending on how the pandemic is shaking out and moving throughout Colorado, the Census Bureau plans and hopes to have census takers looking specifically for people who are not working with shelters, who are living potentially like near mobile services such as mobile van food trucks, soup kitchens, under bridges, in abandoned buildings, that sort of thing. Please know that if you are approached by one of these census takers, that the census is safe. Finally, looking at our fourth column here, if you live in group quarters, technically, yes, you can go online or over the phone to complete the census. However, the best way for you to be counted is for you to work with your facility's administration and talk to them about when a census taker, an official census taker, will be talking with them, or if they've already been talking with the administration at your facility to make sure that everyone is counted. If you have not heard about the census taking place in your facility, please don't hesitate to contact me at lstein@ccdc online with any questions or concerns you might have. You can also let your administrators know how important this is to you to be counted. Moving on to our next slide, that reminds us the census is easy. Let's talk for a few moments about accessibility and language options. So here on this slide, we have, again, another grid table. It has 3 columns and 4 rows down. The 3 columns address, first, people with visual impairments. The second column is for people with hearing impairments. And the third and final column is for people whose first language is not English. Then in terms of our rows, we have responding online, by phone, by paper form, and via an official census taker during non-response phase. So again, similar to our last slide, this gives advice on the options you have available to you to be able to respond to the census, depending on whether or not you have physical impairments of some kind, or if you speak a language different from English. So let's start with the first column. If you're interested in responding to the census online, remember that you can use a screen reader. If you would like to respond by phone, you can call the standard number, obviously. If you would like to request a Braille or large print guide to be able to fill out the census form, please call 1-800-923-8282, which is the Census Survey hotline to assist people with any questions that they might have. Again, that's 800-923-8282, and they can send you a Braille or large print guide to be able to self-respond to the census if you would like assistance with that. If you don't self-respond, then a census taker will come to your residence later in the year during the non-response follow-up phase. Moving on to our second column, if you would like to, if you have a hearing impairment and you would like more information and instructions for how to participate online in the U.S. Census, we have a YouTube link there for you to be able to do that. The census also provides a TDD number, which is 844-467-2020. That's 844-467-2020. And you are, of course, welcome to complete the paper form that is sent to your residence. And in terms of the last row there, if you don't self-respond, a census taker will knock on your door during the non-response follow-up phase later on this year. Moving on to our final column here. For people whose first language is not English, the census has worked hard to ensure that everyone can participate regardless of your preferred language. So, if you would like to respond online, the form online, again, which you can just go to www.2020census.gov, you will find there ways to respond in the top 12 most commonly spoken languages outside of English in the US. So those languages are Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Russian, Polish, Japanese, Korean, Arabic, Tagalog, French, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole. So if you speak any of those 12 languages and would prefer to answer online in those languages, those forms are available for you online. In addition, online you can find language guides in 46 other languages to help you fill out the census in your preferred way. If you would like to respond by phone and you speak a language that is not English, there is a unique phone number to respond in each of the 12 languages that I just discussed. And I've included the link there for you to be able to find that unique phone number. So if you speak Korean, for example, there's a phone number that is set up specifically in your language to be able to respond. If you would like to respond by paper form, the U.S. Census Bureau has been pushing this year to respond by phone and online in order to be more efficient, to provide greener ways of responding that require less paper, and they are also faster and more efficient, which I have not mentioned yet in this video, but the online and phone options are constantly updated. So that is the most accurate, fastest way, right, to respond to the census. However, if paper form is your preferred way or your only option, those forms are available in English and Spanish. And again, if you don't respond on your own, a census taker can help you during the non-response follow-up phase later this year. The Census Bureau does actively try to hire members of every community so that community members can respond in their preferred language with others that they feel comfortable discussing personal information with. Moving on to our next slide. Reminder that the census is easy, right? You still have time to respond. So on this slide, I have some key dates for the census operation and reminders that essentially you have until October 31st to respond. The best way to respond is the faster way. So the quicker that you respond, the more likelihood that the Census Bureau has to collect accurate information. So just going over some of these key dates, the census began went live, excuse me, both online and over the telephone portal on March 12th of 2020. That is also when traditional street addresses began receiving the official Census Bureau invitation to respond online. April 1st is another very significant date. April 1st is really important to draw attention to because there is misinformation in some communities that is suggesting that April 1 was the deadline to respond to the census. This is absolutely not the case. You still have until October 31st, although again, sooner is better, of this year to respond. April 1st, rather, is referred to as Census Day, which means that it is a standard point of reference for all of us as we participate in the census. It is not a deadline to respond. So when you respond to the census, even if you do so in August, in September, in October, you will report to the Census Bureau on the survey where you were living on April 1, 2020. This way, again, moving back to the beginning of this presentation, one of the major goals of the census is not just to count everybody, but to count everybody once, only once, and in the right place. And when they say the right place, that means by accurately locating where people were living on April 1. So if you have multiple homes that you stay in, multiple people that you stay with, please think about where you were on April 1 and respond accordingly. Clearly, we are living in uncertain times due to the COVID-19 outbreak. And so if you would like to stay on the loop in terms of current timelines for both people who have non-traditional addresses and traditional addresses, I've included a link here. And you can also Google Census Operations Timeline Adjustments. That's Census Operations Timeline Adjustments to get the most accurate information. The Census Bureau has had to take into account, in order to attempt to get the most accurate count of all people living in the U.S., the census has had to take into account social distancing and public health concerns. So they did move around some of their timelines in April, if you would like to stay current on that, then please check out that link. That is particularly important for those people who live in group quarters and for those people who are unhoused, because the Census Bureau does have processes planned and hopes to put them in place to ensure that everybody is counted accurately. Finally, on this slide, we do have October 31st, 2020 listed as the deadline to respond. So this is the deadline regardless of how you choose to respond. If November 1 rolls around and you have not been counted, then you have just missed out on giving $23,000 over the course of the next decade to Colorado's public health funds. Please, you have plenty of time. Take the census. And one last reminder about how the census has been made easy. It is 9 questions. That is all. It takes roughly 10 minutes to respond. If that, my family of 3 was able to respond in, I would say, 5 to 6 minutes. It was very simple. But 9 questions, 10 minutes of your life equals literally thousands of dollars for the next 10 years for services that Coloradans simply cannot go without, like Medicaid, like TANF, like SNAP, like Section 8 housing, school lunch programs, special education programs. All of these services are absolutely necessary in everyone's lives. So remember, 9 questions, 10 minutes equals money for the next 10 years. Finally, coming on to our third and final point, I would like everyone to listen to this video and understand that the census is safe. The Census Bureau has taken great measures to make sure that your information is safe and secure. In fact, this is one of the, if not the safest and most secure agency of the entire government. So looking at this slide, we do have a small infographic that explains that under Title 13 of the U.S. Code, the Census Bureau cannot release or share any information about individuals or individuals in a household. So all federal, state, and local government agencies cannot access individual responses. Individual responses cannot be used by the government in any legal proceedings. Individual responses cannot be released through a court order, and individual data is locked up by the Census Bureau for 72 years, running on the average lifespan of an American. So, just to reiterate and make that a bit more clear, your individual data, no one's individual data, can be shared with ICE, with the FBI, with the IRS, or any governmental agencies from the federal to the local level. Simply put, it is illegal for Census Bureau to even attempt to share your information. Not only that, your information, individual information, is not meant to be pulled out of the overall data that the Census Bureau pulls together for the census. So the Census Bureau, the data that they pull goes into an aggregate pool of information, and it is basically impossible for individual data to be taken out of that pool. And then finally, at the bottom of this slide, you can see it is against the law for any Census Bureau employee to disclose or publish any census information that identifies an individual. If Census Bureau employees take a lifelong pledge of confidentiality to handle data responsibly and keep respondents' information private. The penalty for wrongful disclosure is a fine of up to $250,000 or imprisonment for up to 5 years or both. Please know that your information is taken very seriously. It is very secure and very safe. Some other information, just to help you understand that the census is safe, is this slide that discusses how vulnerable communities can participate in the census with confidence. So the 2020 census will ask how many people were living or staying at the address for which you are responding on April 1, 2020, whether the address is rented or owned, and then for each person you'll be asked to share the biological sex of that person, their age, race, ethnicity, and their relationships to other household members. However, the Census Bureau will never ask for your Social Security number, checking account information, credit card information, money or donations, or anything on behalf of a political party. They ask for income level to have an understanding of the economy and how much funding needs to go into each community, so that if a community responds and many people are living near, at, below the poverty level, then they can fund services properly and appropriately for that community. They will never ask for individual information that relates to your finances. Finally, the census does not threaten undocumented people, and it will never involve any law enforcement agency of any kind. There is no question, let me repeat that, no question about citizenship status on the 2020 census. No matter your citizenship status, you should participate in the census and know that your information and your identity is safe. Finally, to conclude, remember that the census is important, again, for all communities. 55 public services are funded by the data that we give the Census Bureau right now. Second, please remember that the census is easy for everyone to complete. You can take it online, over the phone, by paper, and if not, a Census Bureau worker will knock on your door to collect information from you in a safe and secure manner. Speaking of which, the third and final point I hope you'll walk away with today is that the census is completely safe and secure. So please, now is the time to complete your census, whether you do it online, over the phone, or over a paper form. Please take the census and support your community today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, this was Lacey Stein. I am the Census Outreach Coordinator for the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you might have at lstein, that's L-S-T-E-I-N, at ccdconline.org. I am more than happy to help and connect you with appropriate people. You can also find plenty of resources below in the description for this video. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and go take your census.